while I was still in grade school, I was featured in school plays. And at one of the plays, where my mother came to watch with the friends of hers who also had daughters in school, one of the women said, "Pearl, you really ought to give Roslyn lessons in dramatic art." That's what we called them. It used to be elocution, then it became dramatic art. My mother felt guilty if she wouldn't do it at her friend's advice, but she said, "I don't know, I have two boys, they're going to get ready for Hebrew school, and I'll have tuition for that, and I don't know if we can spend the money." And the woman said, "You really should do it for Rosie." So I went to enroll in Esther Sachs's studio, which was in the Fine Arts Building, which today is such a treasure because they haven't changed it. People gave, there were violin lessons, there were violin makers, there were composers, there were all kinds of musical people and artists working in this building. The murals on the wall, the old-fashioned cage elevator that we took, that it was so Beaux-Arts. I took my son and his children to see it a few years ago. They were visiting Chicago, just to see the atmosphere that I grew up in, that one of the few things they haven't destroyed in Chicago. Well, anyway, Esther Sachs agreed. She was so fussy she had to audition you first. Agreed to accept me in her little theater group. And we produced plays at what was then called the Chicago Women's Club Theater. It is now the theater that DePaul uses on 11th Street. Beautiful Art Deco theater. Very professional. We did our plays that were mostly from the fairy tales. I was the star in Beauty and the Beast, and my girlfriend Edna was the star in Anne of Green Gables. And in that class were other boys from Gowdy School and others in the neighborhood, North Side. I remember Vernon Sherman, Bunny Marcus, Fribba Horwich. I don't remember all the other names, but we graduated from the little theater group into her private lessons circle. When it was time for the private lessons, my mother said that she couldn't afford it. She had other family obligations. She was helping her sisters who were broke, and the boys with Hebrew school, and the teacher said she would give me a scholarship because she wanted me in the class. Esther Sachs was a young maiden lady who had taught at the JPI. She herself wanted to be an actress, but those days were hard for women who wanted careers. So she became a teacher. She was gifted. She taught us the same voice and diction classes that I later had at Northwestern University. She used their texts and their techniques. She also sent me out when she'd get a call from women's groups who wanted entertainment for a meeting or a luncheon. They would ask her for someone who could do a reading or a playlet. And the pay was $5, and she sent me out on those gigs. I remember taking the streetcar myself, my stomach fluttering, nervous, what if I forgot a word or a line, until I would get to the place, and then be so relieved it was over because I was so nervous. I'm thinking now, why did I go alone? Why did I have to go alone? I was 15 years old, Why did I go alone to the plays when we were giving them at the 11th Street Theater? I was 11, 12, 13. I'd go alone on the L, feeling nauseous from nervousness. Were my parents, they came later to see this play. Did they trust me so much that they thought I was strong and able to do all these things alone without support? It couldn't be that they were indifferent. Maybe a little bit. I look back at it now and think, why didn't I say, please come with me? Unless your parents said, I'll come with you, you didn't ask. I remember my mother saying one time, Rosie's such a good girl, she never asks for anything. Sadly, I thought you couldn't be a good girl and still ask for things. So I didn't ask. Well, I lived through those nervous afternoons. And like with report cards, my parents always assumed they would be successful. They assumed I'd get A's. They assumed my performances would be successful. Why even talk about it? So I kept my own counsel mainly.